Hi, everyone. Hi, Dr. Rob.
Good evening, Tammy.
So we were just talking about, before I hit record, the Empowered Women's Retreat. And I will gladly expound on this a bit, and we have lots of information. I will put the link in the chat at the bottom of the page. But this is a retreat for women. This is for betrayed partners, and we don't talk about the betrayer. Like, this is about healing, for the women who are participating. So this is not about focusing on them. It's about what do we need to do to take care of ourselves. I love these. So Erin Snow, our clinical director, Tamara Cooper, our family specialist, and Debbie McCrae, who does the alternating Friday afternoon webinars, which are massively great tools for betrayed partners, are the ones that really facilitate this. And I am shocked and amazed to see, like, I can see visibly on the women who join us a shift. They're in their bodies. Yeah, they're in their bodies. They're in their healing. They have a path going forward. We talk about things like, internal boundaries and external boundaries, but we talk about, anger. We talk about grief. We do breath work that was like, just like it was an in-body experience, but it felt like an out-of-body experience. But it is just such an amazing healing opportunity for the people that participate. So we have one scheduled for August, and we have a few spots left, and I mean a few spots left. And then we will offer it again in October. There will be a price increase, and it will be more in season, in the location. But I will put the link in the chat feature, but it's on, for those of you watching the video, it's on Seeking Integrity. Under Betrayed Partners, you'll see Empowered Women's Retreat. There's an overview, there's some pictures, there's some information, but you can always email me, Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com, to get more details on it. And then there's an opportunity for the women that choose it. Everybody chooses their path, but there's an opportunity to do an ongoing connection online, because there were women from all over participating, and that's the continuation. Is education, but also checking in, trying to provide support in a container. Like, if we're saying we're going to do something, we need support to continue to be able to do that thing. So I'm really proud to be part of it. I get to participate and help, and just to be
Grow.
part of, yeah, but it's one of those, like, to witness the shifts. We end on a Sunday. It's a Thursday to Sunday, and Wednesday I was still emotional and tearing up, because it was just so moving to be part of that. And I've been able to stay connected with some of the women. They've continued to reach out, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that as well. So do consider that separately and different. There is a betrayed partner work group starting again online July 21st. We've not had it on a weekend. This is the first opportunity to take it, on a Sunday. Angela Spearman facilitates that. Great content, really helpful. 90 minutes per week for 6 weeks, really good. And one more thing, and then we do have questions. The Sex Addiction 101 online work group starts next Saturday, so July 6th. And Scott hosts that. We've been doing those way before COVID. So those are just solid foundational components. So those are my thoughts on that. Go ahead.
Do you know why I brought it up?
Please.
Because I'm jealous.
Oh,
Because you guys get to have an amazing experience together, and you all come back like, oh my God, I feel so refreshed. And I'm like, nothing.
no, we
So
are not refreshed. We are not. It's hard work. It's very intense for us who are hosting it, because
so
we're
no
up really early and
massage, no
late.
facials,
No
no.
massage, no facials. This is like, we're up extra early. We're at, they're, late. We're holding space for everyone. So no, it's a lot of work for the facilitators, and I wouldn't trade a moment of it. So.
And I will add just briefly that out of my envy, we are starting a men's retreat, and I'm going to be organizing and creating it for this fall. And I think it's for
And it
alumni
will be
only
for
as we're going to
alumni
start.
of our treatment
Yes, we're going to
program
start.
only to
Yeah.
start with. So yeah. So,
But you get
um,
me? Okay.
as one of, like, it's not all
As
about
one
him.
of,
Yeah, it's not all about him. So
I
yeah.
thought it was all about, never mind.
No, you
So
always
let's
think
get,
it's all about you, and it's not. So, okay. So here we go. The first question. Oh, I
I
have a
see.
disagreement with someone about whether or not narcissistic people tend to pay for sex. My thought is that sex addicts tend to be narcissistic, at least in active addiction. And it's obviously not uncommon for them to pay for it. What are your thoughts on this? What is the connection? This is an interesting question. We've not had one like this before. So thanks for asking it.
Well, narcissistic people tend to make everything about themselves. And we want, notice I said the we because I have some of those issues. We want everything to be about us. And while we can buy sexual situations, to be honest, we'd rather not. Because the whole thing about being an addict is I want people to find me attractive. I want people to, they can't wait to be with me. And the idea of paying them means it isn't just about me and how special and handsome and wonderful I am. I actually have to pay someone, which is not as rewarding. However, the addicts will turn it into that. And what they do is they go to see a sex worker, and the goal is to get that sex worker to find them the most important, the most special. So, I will be convinced, and by the way, the sex workers know this, that I'm the special one. I'm the important one. I'm like no other client. And they understand for narcissistic folks, that is like food when you're starving. Oh, I'm so important. And we will work. I don't do this, but I'm just saying we as a sex addict, we will work to be the most special one. The worst examples I've seen this back in the day were phone sex, when people would spend thousands of dollars trying to become the person that the person wanted. We're going to see this in the future with VR for sure. But anyway, if we can avoid paying for it because we're so special and wonderful, we would. The reality is that we're going to get it one way or another. But what we're going to do if we don't pay for it, if we do pay for it, is we're going to try to be the most special and important client that person has ever had because we're just so wonderful. Yeah. Did I anything else about that,
Well,
Tammy?
and this person adds at least an active addiction to tend to be narcissistic. So, I think it's fair to say that, addicts and sex addicts as part of that, but any form of addiction, narcissistic traits, are absolutely because we are focused on getting what we perceive we need, in order to be able to do life. And so, with sex workers, it is transactional. And yes, there can be the sugar baby, sugar daddy. And we've had lots of guys come to our treatment program who have spent lots and lots of money on those, kind of situations, or sex workers. But at the end of the day, I'm then paying for I'm paying for services rendered, so to speak. So there's, a sex worker who wants to have it be financially beneficial to them is going to have uh, outstanding customer service, shall we say. So yeah, when Dr. Rob was talking about, I want to be the most special, that person is going to make sure that you are the most special. Of course, the next person is as well. So, but
Right.
that doesn't enter the addict brain. It's like, it really is such a narrow focus on that. So, but the correlation, what I was thinking, because you're like, like somebody was like, if, narcissistic people pay for sex, and
Right.
addicts have narcissistic traits and some pay for sex, but there isn't an, if this, then that correlation to
Right.
me. Yeah, you agree. Okay.
I just
Okay.
also want to say something about narcissism. We get this question all the time. There are very few in my entire career profoundly psychologically impaired narcissists. I mean, profoundly narcissistic personality. I've probably in 30 years have run into, I don't know, 8 or 10, because those people are so narcissistic that they literally can't function in life. Many of us have traits, and I certainly will surrender to that. But I'll tell you where they come from. They come from trauma. They come from abuse. They come from how I needed to find myself special because of how little I got growing up. That is not an excuse. In fact, I was talking to a friend today and I said, you know what? Let me give you some jokes about my narcissism, because the point is that it's not going away, but I know about it. I understand it. When I say the wrong thing, I have learned through treatment and therapy to notice it and to fix it. Whereas someone who's not in recovery from narcissism will just say whatever. And then if you say they're upset, they'll say, what's wrong with you? As opposed to saying, oh, I guess I said the wrong thing. So as Tammy's correct, many of us do have those traits and they play out much more extensively in addiction. But what I hear from a lot of you folks is, well, my spouse is narcissistic and that must mean, I can't be with them, or they're deeply disturbed, or we have issues for sure. They do affect you more profoundly than perhaps if we didn't have those issues, but we're not unredeemable. And we can actually be quite wonderful folks. As a therapist said to me once, narcissists make really good therapists. And I'll leave it to you to figure out why, but I know why. There's something behind me coming in my background.
Yeah, there's something like, yeah,
Must be my you know what? The window is open with the light coming in, and so
yeah, but
probably
it
it's
looks like a
flickering.
person. No, it looks like a
Yeah,
person back there.
it's not though, but how's
Yeah,
that?
no,
That's
it was
probably
weird.
better.
Okay, all
I
right.
moved the light.
Okay, thank you. Married 37 years last week, betrayed spouse here. Found out 8 years ago my husband wanted to celebrate our anniversary, even though we have been in our house separated for over 3 years. Oh, wow. So an in-house separation for 3 years. Okay. I don't think our anniversary means anything since he was an active addict when we married and for most of our marriage. I think he loves our life, kids, grandkids, etc. But I don't think he ever loved me. Can an active addict truly love their spouse? That's a complicated, and I hear a lot of pain in that. So I'm sorry, and I'm so glad you're here. Empowered Women's Retreat would be honestly consider that. But Dr. Rob, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it is very complicated, right? Because it depends on the couple and their relationship before this, and what was the intimacy that there's so many questions here. But when I hear people say they've had a 3-year in-house separation, you've got to consider that emotionally, they're not really married. In the sense that they're watching out for each other all the time and they're traveling, taking vacations, and there's that physical intimacy. And, it sounds more like a friendship, which I think, by the way, after 37 years, I wouldn't necessarily want that person to go away. And I probably would still have deep feelings about it with them because it's 37 years of being together. But that doesn't make a marriage necessarily. However, I wouldn't want to throw them away because after all, when you're a certain age, I know for me, I don't want to start all over again, but that doesn't mean I want the person entirely out of my life. So I just wanted to say that part first. The other part is that you said something I thought was the most meaningful thing that I read, which I don't think our anniversary means anything, and you said that. So to me, you got to go with your gut, as Tammy says, for partners. And I was really impressed. You didn't say, I hate him. I don't want to spend time with him. We shouldn't, what I heard is it just doesn't mean a lot. And I say all this all the time, that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And what I hear is you're curious, you don't know what to do. But there's a third question in there, which is about, can an addict truly love their spouse? And the answer is absolutely. There's no question to me that we can love you and we can love you deeply. And this concept of how could you love me and do this to me at the same time? How could I love you and drink like an alcoholic? How could I love you and spend every penny we have on gambling? It's very personal and very intimate and it's the most personal thing it can be for someone, is their physical body and their touch and their commitments. But from an addiction perspective, I abandon you every time I drink. I abandon you every time I use. I abandon you every time I eat, to the point where I hate myself. So I think all addicts can stay in connection to their spouse and still go out and do this really crazy, crazy stuff that hurts the spouse. It's just the most extreme example of that is the sexual and romantic and intimate betrayal. Did that make any sense, Tammy? I
Yeah, it
never
makes a
know.
lot of sense, and I
Okay.
was thinking, because I too think, I think they love them to the capacity that they have the ability to love someone else. Because again,
Right.
when push comes to shove, I'm going to choose, my acting out behaviors rather than thinking, what would my spouse, want me to do, want me to choose, and that's out of brokenness and everything else. But and I'm what, I agree with Dr. Rob, the indifference. But I also hear, we're companionable in the house, and I agree. I I would go with your lead on the anniversary, but the loving, yeah, I really do think, he does love you to the best of his ability. And my sadness, because I think you will be fine, honestly. Like you've got a really clear head on this. It's like, we're we're
Asking the
sharing
right
a dwelling.
questions.
Yeah, and we're sharing a dwelling, and we've got this life, and all of these things. And the sadness is for him because he will never really connect. He will always be that one-off person, compartmentalized over here, where everybody else is, connected in the much deeper way. So I'm sad for
I,
all of you, but him in particular.
and Tammy, I wanted to answer one more thing, because there's so many great questions in here. Can an active truly love their spouse is part of the question. And, you know, what I wrote this down. What does love mean? Because for me, living with an addict, it means they're going to trust. It means they've stopped acting out. In other words, if I saw somebody who I was living with parade the continued experience in front of me, that's not love. I mean, it may be a feeling of love in there, but behavior is love in recovery. How is this person acting around you? Are just because you're not married or not emotionally married doesn't mean you're not living together and you're sharing grandkids and all that. So it would not be okay for me to someone to act badly and still say they love me, wanted to be with me. To me, it's the same thing. So to me, can you be loved by us depends on how willing we are to take on what it takes on for change. And that's what tells me that somebody really loves me, not what they've done, but what they're willing to do to make it better.
Yeah.
So let's keep moving.
Okay. Yes. The next one. I am the addict. I've been out of Sila for 14 months. While at Sila, I remembered an affair partner. I did not disclose this affair partner to my wife for 13 months. I repeatedly lied to my wife, my sponsor, my CSAT. I did not disclose this partner with my full disclosure in February of this year. I am asking you for a suggestion to do a responsive action plan. I violated my wife's boundary regarding lying, and I lied when I wrote my restitution letter. I blew up my relationship so that I really don't have a relationship at this point. My wife is back in betrayal trauma. I have been participating in a 12-step program, and I'm presently seeing a CSAT. This one came up before, and I just remember going like, everything that we were like so specific. Like, yeah, so I'm
So
like,
Tammy,
I
why don't
hate
you
this.
start with this
Well,
one? Because I
I
have
did
some
before because this
thoughts,
one
but
was up before. So
oh,
I have
okay.
responded to this one before. So
So by the way, Sila means someone was in our treatment program. And
right.
so here's what I love about this, Tammy. You can go through treatment and not come out doing it perfectly. You can come out of treatment and have slips. You can have come out of treatment with struggles. We put people on the path, and I can tell you all the ways we do that. But how they manage it when they go home is, that's when the rubber hits the road. Are they going to do the things they were instructed? Are they going to take advantage of what they've taught, they've been learned? So, this person knew in treatment that this was going on. And what's interesting to me is, well, first of all, the fact that this person's asking the question means that we did good treatment. And I mean that because someone who is not in recovery would never ask this question. They would continue to hide it. They would try to make it up, make it all better, push it all. This person actually asking an informed question about how to fix something that they feel badly about. And I actually respect that. I don't respect what happened to you, but I think for those of you who want to understand what someone who is reflective and is informed and is trying to get better looks like, even though they're still screwing up, this is what that looks like. And they would have never talked about it before. So in any case, even though this is a problem, I see recovery in here. I just want to say this. I don't know what Tammy would think, but in some ways you're starting all over again. What partners are trying to do is literally build a foundation of trust. And when they believe they had trust, sorry, I'm saying this, but you partners are here. When you believe you truly are being able to begin trust and you believe there's a real foundation for change, then you can begin to feel good about this little piece and feel okay about that little piece. And it can take a really long time. You won't fully rebuild trust, but you rebuild the connection and the meaning of the relationship. You will look at them more with love than anger. And there's a process. But when this happens again, the foundation cracks and you go back into free fall and you again don't know where the bottom is. You don't know how much more you don't know. This is at your end. This person went to treatment and they didn't tell me. I mean, that's just sucks. So I hate to say this to the person who did it, but behavior has consequences. Behavior has consequences. And the fact that you chose to withhold this, not only you didn't tell her, but you chose to withhold it, says to this person, if they're lying about that, and they could lie about that for so long, what else are they lying about? And that's where the foundation is cracked because it takes even more time to begin to trust them if something has been held for so long after they've been to treatment. So I'm not saying completely start again because there is information you didn't have before, but emotionally, this is a restart. And if that person even stays with you, you are fortunate. Tammy, do you have other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree, and you're right. This is a person who's showing up and saying this now. But we often share. It's like, and I know that people are like afraid of what's going to happen if I share this information. And this is what this is the example of this is what happens when you don't share because it always comes out whether they find out about it or you share it later or whatever. So I appreciate that you at least were showing up and saying it now, after this period of time and willing to take the risk because obviously it's a big risk. Um, Hopefully, if you're really leaning into your program and following your recovery work, and your partner is able to see your action, because obviously, lies come from lips, and so this is one of those where if you're doing the actions, and she's getting the support that she needs, because like you said, she's right back in the thick of the betrayal trauma, then hopefully as she gets support. And I don't think, I mean, yes, it's a deep, plunge in the moment, but I do think partners who have been doing this work, have more resources and are supported in a different way. So hopefully she, has the ability to come through that, quicker for herself, not necessarily, I don't know what's going to happen for the two of you, but I know for sure that, the only thing that I can work on is me. And so I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're asking. And I hope you're really leaning into working on you now.
I wanted to say something more is that, Tammy, people who come in and they come into treatment, they've lied to their partner. But they went to couples treatment and they lied there, and they went to therapy and they lied there, and they went to 12-step meetings and they lied there, and they raised their hand in a meeting and said, I'm sober for 6 months, but they weren't. So I do have more concern for this, because this is really, if you're going to lie in your group, and this is after treatment, right? If you're going to still, and believe me, they know how we think of lying. And also that we say, if you're going to talk about it here, get it off your chest, talk about it, and then we'll make a plan for what you're going to do with it. But in any case, I worry about people who lie consistently in multiple areas, because that means they are so concerned with how they appear that they'd rather have people look at them in a certain way than be honest and build intimacy. So I do want to say, and Tammy, although we said the stuff that we said, this would be a harder person for me to stay with. This would be a harder person for me to ever really begin to trust, because they didn't just lie to me. They lied in situations where they had the opportunity to get well. They went to a whole group of people. Maybe someone saw them as a role model. Maybe the therapist said, oh, well, we're not going to do more work in this area because you've come so far. And this is what I hate about people in couples therapy, is that partners coming in really believing things are going to get better, and you're paying, and there's hope and there's dreams for the partner, and there's no way that it could ever work because the addict is lying. And what bothers me the most about this is you're probably working together to make it better, and he's lying at the same time. So this is a hard one for me to say, yay, move on, it's going to get better, because and been through treatment, still lying, lied to everybody. This is very serious, despite that they're coming forward. They didn't come forward before. They're, what do we call asking for forgiveness, not permission? This person came to you. And by the way, I don't think that they were, I think there's more in here that we don't know about. So just a thought. What else might not, maybe shaded and not quite the truth. Yeah, I'd give her permission to kick your butt out the door for a while.
Next question. My SA husband, 60, together 45 years, has been sober for 1 year, including 2 CSATs and MC for 6 months. I don't know what that is.
Marital
SAA for,
counselor?
oh, marriage counseling.
That's
Okay,
my
that one makes sense.
guess.
There's so many initials in this. I have to guess.
I guessed. That was a guess.
Thank you. SAA for 4 months, 3 groups weekly, acting out with prostitutes 23 years ago, undiagnosed, and again the past 6 years. We had a dead bedroom for 12 years, including the past 6 years. He is very resentful of the 12 years of disconnection. We are struggling with communication. He takes every conversation as criticism, becomes verbally abusive, turns all issues into blame, plays the victim, etc. I know it takes time to change, and I'm willing to wait. I am not concerned that he is acting out. At what point in time can I expect to see consistent change in communication? And if not, would an in-house treatment, in-house separation, I think would be recommended. Oh, or residential treatment. You're talking about so residential treatment. Yes, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
Tammy, you
struggling
take
with
a
this.
breath. You
Yeah.
breathe, and I'll work on this. I know you
Thank
said you
you.
were hungry, so I understand
Yeah.
completely. So let me just say this. I laugh because I heard this person has been sleeping with prostitutes, having sex with prostitutes for 23 years, and in the past 6, which I don't know what that means, but nonetheless. And then we had a dead bedroom for 12 years, including last 6. I think there's a reason you had a dead bedroom, and it's not about you, and it's not about the relationship. Addicts do this all the time. We externalize the problem. We say, I wouldn't be acting out this way if you had more sex with me. I wouldn't be acting out this way. Even we say it to ourselves. We don't say it to you because they've gained so much weight. I don't want to act. I don't want to be with them. So we convince ourselves that you're not good enough. And we might convince you that you're not good enough in order to feel entitled, which is a huge word for addicts, to feel like we deserve to act out. So number one is I don't understand how anyone who's been acting out with other people sexually, which has all kinds of connotations for why it would distract from the relationship other than the lack of intimacy and all that, and then is saying that they're resentful if you're not having sex. How in the world could you have sex? And by the way, you spouses know somewhere in here that something's not right. I know that you do. And if you do have sex with us, sometimes you'll feel like something's not right, but you'll go ahead and do it anyway. And oftentimes you'll blame yourselves. Here, I hear this person is blaming you, and you're asking the question. So I just really, this is where I want to comfort and support you because I think you've been sold a pack of lies and you're actually taking responsibility for yourself. As far as treatment, so here's where treatment comes up in my mind. Also, with the person with lying and lying and lying, that comes up. Maybe they need some of the extra stuff that we do, but nonetheless, um, when I hear with struggling with communication, taking conversations as criticism, becoming verbally abusive, turning issues into blame and victim. By the way, that is narcissism. You want to see the symptoms of narcissism? That's it. As far as you're saying, so about treatment is what I was saying. If someone was acting out and really struggling to get sober and having some struggles and didn't feel good about themselves and said things to you that weren't perfect, great. They're on the way. They're seeing a therapist. They're seeing the right therapist and they're moving ahead. But what I worry about and bothers me more than the acting out is how you're being treated. Can you imagine someone who's been made a commitment to be to me, who says they love me and care about me? And this isn't if you love me, you wouldn't do this. You wouldn't have sex with other people because we can. But if I love you, how can I how can I criticize you all the time? How can I be verbally abusive? How can I turn issues to blame and it being your fault? And how could it end up that I can play the victim? So I have to tell you, this is a residential treatment person. And not only because of that, but they've been sober for a year. They've been seeing two professionals. For CSATs are people who study and are certified in this. And I will say that every member of our staff is certified in this. But nonetheless, it means that they are specialists in sex addiction problems. So I don't hear when you're working with one of us for a year, you should be more respected, more cared about, more understood. And I'm not really, I don't know what MC means, but if you're in marital counseling, I just really wonder how this is coming out and being worked on. So, bottom line is, to me, if someone has taken the steps they need to take, because treatment is on a continuum. You go to groups, you go see a therapist, you go to a marriage counselor, you go to meeting, you start doing all these things. And if it doesn't change, then you end up at this end of the continuum. It's like you cut your finger and then it gets worse. You have to have antibiotics and then it gets worse and you have to go to the doctor. Medicine is the same continuum as addiction is. So what I hear is this person, your husband, who you've been together for all of this time, your entire life, has not turned their diagnosis around into any kind of kindness, reflection, honesty. I don't even hear amends, coming back and saying, I really didn't mean to. So I can't think, one of the things that happens in treatment is they get a lot of confrontation about how they are treating their spouses and the result for you of how we treat you. So that is a huge issue in treatment, is how can you treat your partner this way, considering what you've done? How can you treat your partner this way at all? And I'll say one more thing that I think is very sad to me is that women who marry young, I mean, you were 15, is that right,
15
Tim?
when they got together. They didn't get
Right.
married then, but
So
yeah,
you were in high
yeah.
school or whatever it is you did. Women who've not been in a primary relationship before, when you marry someone when you're 20, you don't know what one is like. You haven't been with someone for a year or 10. I mean, you haven't been with someone for 5 years already. You haven't been married, perhaps married to someone already. Well, probably not if you've been together since 15. So you just, whatever happens, you adapt and you adapt. It's like the frog in the boiling water. And I've heard many women say, well, I guess this is what a marriage is, because you don't really know what a healthy marriage should be and how you should be loved because you've never been in that situation. So what makes me sad about this is that you've missed years of happiness that you might have had, because I bet you have accepted this isn't just become verbally abusive. He's been this way a long time. And unfortunately, you have accepted and allowed yourself to be treated so badly maybe because that's what you knew, or you just hope this would get better. So I am concerned that he's acting out. You may not be, but I am concerned because and I'll just stop here, Tammy. At what point in time can I expect to see consistent change in communication? When they're sober, when they stop, when they don't have excuses for being a jerk to themselves or to you. This person is, you can wait until the cows come home, but is that okay? Cows come home? You can wait until the cows come home, but this person is not going to treat you differently until they understand the responsibility that they are taking for their behavior and stop pointing at you. So I can't think of a better reason for someone to come see me and my treatment team. And by the way, we'd be in communication with the CSATs. We'd be in communication with you all the way through. So there's a process of understanding where it is and where it's headed before the person leaves in relationship to you and the therapist. So yeah, that's my big long thing. And I'm
Well,
sorry, you don't
yeah,
deserve this.
no, what, and I was thinking, yeah, the verbally abusive, like, you're 100% right. And when can I expect to see consistent change? I don't hear any change. How would you ever have string along consistent change? I hear, like, we use the analogy of a dry drunk, somebody who is, so let's say he stopped the problematic behaviors of acting out, but he's still a not nice person, and looking for all kinds of excuses and everything else. So a drunk that doesn't drink is just a dry drunk. They're not a sober person in recovery. And I know lots and lots of people that go park their butt at a 12-step meeting, but they aren't working the steps. They aren't doing anything. They're just physically in the meeting and they don't change. So change takes action. Like, we have to choose to do the action on a daily basis in order to make change. And I don't hear somebody who's doing that. His pattern is, I'm going to blame you. I'm going to blame you. I'm going to be the victim. Poor me. Okay, I'll go to a couple meetings so I can get my gold stars in the checkbox. But there's so this would be healthy boundaries for you, and expect no change from him. As long as this continues, with all due respect, 5 more years from now, you can be in the same situation, because these are the patterns. I call it the negative 2-step, Dr. Rob. You do this and I do this. You do this and I do this, and we're wearing out a pattern in the floor, but we're not changing anything. And so you can change the choreography. You cannot accept unacceptable behavior, which is, if somebody's verbally abusive to me, that is unacceptable behavior. And, like, at some point I have to go, I do not, that I have more value than that. And I am not going to, accept that. And, you can try to blame me. That's your reality, but that's you, not me. It takes work for partners, especially when they've been gaslighted, blame shifted, all of those things for decades. But there is support and you can do it.
I want to say one more thing, which is someone who
Please.
was involved with the CSAT when it started and helped write it and taught it and understand. I mean, most of the CSATs that have been around for many, many years, I taught, so I know that program pretty well. And when I was actively participating in outpatient treatment, and one of the things we teach the CSATs is it's not okay to let someone continue to act out for 3 months while we're working with them. And I mean the sexual behavior. In my program, you needed to stop for within 2 weeks. And then we were going to talk about, you needed to be accountable. You needed to be checking in. You needed to. So I don't like that. I don't believe in this. Well, they've started this and they've started that, but they're still acting out. Well, why? How is it that they get to? And how much are they lying to their therapist? I don't know if, with all due respect, we lie to our therapist. And you know what we lie about? How horrible you are, how terrible you are, how miserable we are. And then the therapist, if they're not well trained, will say, oh, that poor guy, he lived such a bad relationship, poor guy, and for so many years. And we believe their bullshit. So I'm just curious. And again, this is what happens in treatment is the whole thing gets opened up and we begin to see how they've acted to cover up their stuff and gaslight you. Yeah. So that's my stuff. And if you want to know more about treatment, it is TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. If you have a question for me, Tammy will always send it along to me.
Yes. Yeah.
What have we got?
And we are a small program. It's no more than 8 clients at a time. and Dr. Rob, and so we've got 5 master's or PhD level, all trained professionals working with the clients. This is only men. I mean, like, this is very unique work. We've had guys that have been to all the other treatment programs, and they affirm also that what we do is different, more individualized, very specific on these issues. And I often say this, and Dr. Rob has heard me say this before, if we're not your first treatment program, we want to be your last. We want you to have the tools so that you can move forward in a different way. We have a family specialist that is supporting the partners from a prodependent lens. And I'm going to take just a quick moment. Dr. Rob wrote books actually about, I should actually have you talk about this, but it's the framework of codependence, where you're part of the problem, you're an enabler, you're codependent, you're enmeshed, all of those things, rather than going, gosh, you love somebody who's really struggling and broken, and healthy attachment and healing for you. It's very different lens. And that's what, all the work that we do not pathologize partners. So
I'm sorry, Taylor, there's a fly in my coffee. Literally, there's something else I wanted to say about this. I'm interrupting you about treatment, but I wanted to add something to that, is that whatever you choose to do, a couple of things that I would recommend about treatment: come to us, don't come to us. Number one, whatever the treatment is, they need to be staying in that program, living in them. I can't tell you how difficult it is for someone to go through great treatment all day long, and then they go back to a hotel, or then they go back to some halfway house or whatever, and no one is monitoring them. And they're also not gaining the experience of what happens in the evening, which often is as important as what happens in the daytime. So make sure whatever it is they do, that it's 24/7, and that they are being monitored and managed and supported during that period of time. And the other thing is, I would make sure there were no women patients. And I mean, there are folks where, as Tammy said, there are 45 people in the treatment program, and they eat in the dining room. And in the dining room, half of them are men and half of them are women and people's families. And, I just don't think that kind of distraction. People say, well, they need to go through it in treatment so that they'll learn how to handle it. No, they need to go about it with 24/7 challenge, confrontation, and direction, and then take it out into the world with support. So yeah, those are some guidelines, whatever it is that you decide, to make sure that it's effective. Oh, one more thing about treatment. It's not about us. It doesn't matter whose name or how famous or how many books you've written if your name is on the program, unless you're there. One of the things I pride myself is I am there. I am working with clients. And the reason I say that is there's some amazing programs with names of amazing people who've done amazing things, but they're not there. And it's usually the person who has 2 years of experience, who's just starting out, who wants to work at it. Your therapist is what matters. The training of the person that you're working with is more important than the name of on anyone's door. And the reason I'm saying that is I've seen too many people spend a fortune on going to, well-named treatment centers who have great intentions, but the staff is only as good as the staff is. And the person who's managing and they're just not there anymore. Now, this doesn't bode well, Tammy, when I get a little bit older and I won't be able to be there. But for the moment, I'm there regularly, and I think that matters.
Erin is not as well known yet as you, but she's amazing, and so
I'm going to hand
we're
her
going
the
to be
ball.
fine. So yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So the next one is a comment rather than a question. We've been married for 6 years and have been together for 10 years. Last week, he told me he's a sex addict and been with multiple women for a few years. So we hear your pain. I really do. And I want to tell you.
I'm sorry.
No, that's what I just said. There's no question.
Oh, right. You said it was a comment. So sorry.
So yeah. So, but I'm taking the time to share this because, we have an online work group that starts July 21st that is good information for betrayed partners. We have drop-in groups throughout the week for each of you separately. Those are, and I'll take just a moment, those are online and those are not recorded. So those are Zoom, but we've got male addicts. We've got a separate one for female addicts. So just like Dr. Ropp was talking about, we do separate. So with betrayed partners, there's multiple opportunities through the week, to do a drop-in group, just to connect with other partners.
And they're free.
And those are all, drop-in groups, webinars, podcasts. There's lots of those. So all on our website, you'll find those things. But you getting support, you learning what healthy boundaries are, you getting the help to identify what they are. And, if he gets help, if he does the work, and you just heard about our expert residential treatment program, like for those that can, getting the ability to do that much work in a compressed amount of time rather than 12 to 24 months if they're doing the work, like we just shared with the last one, not really doing the work. So, but for those that are willing to do the work, they can really engage in that separately. 12 step, that's not, we have resources that point people towards that. So the more he leans into the recovery work, the more you see his actions, showing you that he's on a different path. But for you right now, it's just like, getting support. And I'm so glad you're here, getting support, to take care of you, because betrayal trauma is real. We talk about lots of those things. So this is a process. I'm glad you're here. Email me, tami@seekingintegrity.com. I'll put it in the chat too, but I can send you some resources. For those, I get lots of requests for people that are looking for qualified professionals, because there's a lot of CSETs that I do refer to, and there's a bunch I don't. And so you have to let me know where you're located, and I'll do my best to help you find qualified resources.
I
So
do
anything
want to
to add
say
to
one
that?
more. I do. And I mean this in the most sincere way. It's a social worker in me. It's the person who is in recovery in me. I know that many of you will never be able to have the resources to go to a treatment center. I know that many of you may not have the resources to take a 6-week work group. I would say, and Tammy, you know the numbers, but I would say 75% of what we do free. It is very important for me that those of you who don't have the resources to get the help you need. Of course, we do paid stuff. How else would we be paid? But we are dedicated to. And by the way, in those groups, they don't say, oh, and go to Seeking Integrity. They're just there to support you. So please understand, on the website, seekingintegrity.com, you will see the things, obviously, that we charge for, but you're going to see all of the free groups and all the free information. And I really, from my heart, want you to take advantage of the things that are free. Even if you're in treatment, take advantage of the things that are free. It's there. I don't know. And honestly, I don't know anywhere else you can find,
You
25
can't.
resources a week. That was part of our dedication to doing this. So I just want to say that to you. We're not here for a sales job. Sure, we need to make a living, but what's really important to me is that everyone gets some opportunity to heal. So I want to say
So
that I'm
on that
proud of
note,
that.
I did add the online work groups, a 6-week live facilitated course, 90 minutes a week, is $395. Like, that is like $65 a week. It's very low cost. But you're talking about the drop-in groups. We had a shift on the Sunday men's sex addiction 101 drop-in group. The person that was facilitating it needed to step away, and I have worked really hard to find somebody, and I did. And so I think by mid-July we're going to have that Sunday drop-in group back in the lineup. So stay tuned. For the men who've been waiting to see that one come back, it's on its way. So I'm very excited about that.
Okay.
Okay. So the next one, Dr. Rob, my husband recently disclosed that he's still masturbating and using euphoric recall. He still considers himself sober. I do not, as I see him still clinging to his addiction, as well as continue to spike his dopamine. Am I overreacting? Can this still be considered sobriety?
No. I don't think there's any way that you can consider this to be sobriety. Are you overreacting? I don't know. You're being betrayed on a regular basis. And I do want to say to you guys, I was just writing about this today. Porn is betrayal. Well, I've done enough research and information to tell you about 80% of you, whether or not you're married to an addict, say, I really feel betrayed by porn. They're comparing me. They're looking for someone like that. It's a violation. Now, if you've said, I look at it, it's okay with you, that's a different story. But you find out we're looking at 5 hours of porn a week or a day, that is a violation of the relationship. So I do not see him as clinging to his addiction. I do. He's
No,
still
she says,
masturbating.
I do not see, as she does not see that he's justifying that it's not that
Him
he's
still
sober.
clinging.
And she's
I
saying, no, I don't agree. I see you clinging to your
uh
addiction.
well, I don't think he's, regardless of what the words are, and this person is clinging to addiction, and I think you need to hold on to that, and they need to hold on to that, because disclose that I'm still acting out, still using, pardon me, still using euphoric recall, and I agree with you, still using these images and this experience to get literally emotionally excited and distract themselves. That's like saying, well, he's still drinking and he's still getting high, but and I think, and he used that for emotional escape and it spiked the dopamine, yes, but that's not healthy. As I say to the guys a lot, and I was taught this, life lived in a healthy way is just one notch above boring. You have happy times, you have bad times, you have really nice times, you have really awful times, but it's not these huge highs and huge lows that are dopaminergic, because that means that with day-to-day life and love, we're never happy. We're never satisfied because we're looking for that intensity. So I do not think you're overacting, and I do not consider this to be sobriety. And I'd
I,
suggest you go to a free work group. Is work group
yeah,
good?
no, the work groups are low cost. Yeah. So, but what I want to know is what is he doing to change this? And it's so interesting to me. Is like, well, I'm justifying. Like, this is sobriety. I'm going to tell you this is called gaslighting. I'm going to tell you that, I'm sober. It's all good. I'm having euphoric recall. I'm acting out, but it's all, trust me, I'm sober. And what is he doing? He knows it bothers you. Like, you're coming on here and you're sharing this, and he cares more about masturbating to his euphoric recall than about doing something that would help repair the relationship. So I think that's really important information for you to consider as well. So I always say, when partners are like, shore up your boundaries, make sure you're taking care of you. You are not overreacting at all. You're maybe even underreacting,
Well,
so,
and I want to say the one thing I don't hear is anything about what he's doing to stay sober.
no.
He says he's sober. Does that mean he's going to support groups? Does that mean he's signed up for a work group? Does that mean, what does that actually mean? Because my words when I'm an addict, they don't mean enough. They don't mean
Yeah.
anything. But
Yeah.
what I do and my actions are golden. Okay, let's keep going.
And to me, it was almost too, like, I'm telling you about this, or you're finding out about this, but what else is going on? Like, I like
Oh, there's
always,
more.
yeah. Oh yeah,
There's definitely
disclosed too.
more.
Yeah.
And take an STD test. I don't care
Yes,
what you
please.
believe. Go get an
Yeah.
STD test, because we lie, and you got to protect yourself. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I
We've
know
had,
that the last thing you want to do.
no, but to your point, we've had guys that have come to treatment and end up with an STD, not because of treatment, but then they have to call their partner who thought they were just looking at porn. And, so yes, partners, please, that's the one thing you can take care of, is take care of your physical self. So, okay, next one, Dr. Rob. I have been a betrayed partner for 30 years. My husband has been in lots of meetings, and he has just finished residential, and he came home and is saying he is abused by me. And when I say you lied and abused me, even when we were married, he says, I didn't lie the whole time, or always, and you have to give me grace now that I'm back. Comments? Wow, that one's complicated.
Well, I hope to say that this is not someone who went through our treatment program. And if they did, my apologies. Please write in and let's find out what didn't happen or what went wrong. But but this to me falls under codependency, which is I'm going to blame you and make you take responsibility for a part of my addiction. And you know what? You don't have, this is what codependence is about. You don't have any responsibility for someone else's addiction. That is their problem. So, um, I didn't lie the whole time. Of course, they lied all the time, because lying by omission is lying. If I'm doing stuff and I don't tell you about it, that's lying. And I don't think that anyone deserves your grace just because they've been to treatment. Treatment is like going to college. When you're done, you don't get a job at college. You're out in the world and you go to work, and treatment is like that. You learn all the tools, you get everything you need to do, but then you got to go out in the world and practice it. And I don't think practicing it in any way is blaming you or giving you the responsibility. So this just sounds awful to me on every level. And you should join one of the free partners groups and really listen to what these other people have to say. Just
Well,
listen.
and we have comprehensive, aftercare planning for our clients, and other programs have some aftercare. So I would lean into that. Like, we have family specialists. So, like, the guys that leave, there's a plan, and so if one of you is not navigating the plan, I would go back to what is the plan, because the plan is designed to help coordinate and set you up for success. But I also am I hear meetings, and that's good. But also, each of you working with a qualified therapist. And though we usually don't recommend, a couples therapist early on, this might be a situation where working with a couples therapist to help you navigate this. That he said, she said, and all of those things. Like, that would be something to work on in with a couples therapist. So you're saying it, and they can help you unpack all of that. Okay, the next one, Dr. Rob. I've been deeply hurt and traumatized by the news he shared with me. Discovering that he's been lying to me despite my intuition and previous suspicions has shaken me to the core. I gave him chances, believing your reassurance, only to learn that my instincts were right all along. I'm struggling to come to terms with everything. It's incredibly difficult to imagine how we move forward from here. Trust, which is the foundation of any relationship, feels shattered. I don't know if I can continue with him and still have a sense of normalcy in my life. I need time to process my emotions and figure out what's best for me. Please understand that this isn't easy for me, but I have to prioritize my own well-being and sense of security. I don't see a question in that, but I would affirm, I mean, we say this to partners all the time that, you need to have safe space for you, in the face of things. So, but I don't see a
I do
question.
want to, no,
Do
but
you
I
see a
think there's
question
things
in
to
there?
comment on, which is,
Okay.
to me, the one big one is trust is the foundation of any relationship, and it feels shattered. Every one of us who are in intimate, loving relationships believe, in my opinion, that that person, when they walk out the door, our partner, husband, wife, whatever it is, that they would never deliberately do things that they know would hurt us. Do not live with an idea that the person I love would deliberately go out in the world and hurt me. And once you know that your partner can just go ahead out in the world and know your worst nightmare and go ahead and do it anyway, that foundation is broken and it will never be the same. That partner will never go out the door again, and you'll think, oh, everything's going to be fine. And that is the profound shift in the relationship that causes everything else. So I just want to reinforce that trust is the foundation of any healthy relationship. And without it, there's a lot of swimming with no shore ahead. So, yeah. By the way, I need to process my emotions. Yes, you do. Figure out what's best for you. You do. What breaks my heart, Tammy, please understand this isn't easy for me. I don't even understand why you would say that. Um, of course it isn't easy for you. Of course you're confused. By the way, let me just say quickly something about ambivalent love, because I think this is one of the things that makes spouses crazy. Is a phrase that a friend of mine quoted, which is, sometimes I look at you and I hate you. You ruined my life. I can't believe you did this to me. What kind of person are you? I'll never trust you again. Why did I get with you in the first place? And then you look over at them and they're doing something sweet and lovely and fun. And you think, gosh, despite what's happened, I really love them. And they've done their best. And going back and forth between the ambiguity of I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you is part of the craziness of being a spouse. And unfortunately, and I say this to all you spouses, crazy is your new normal. Crazy is your new normal because your life is crazy. And so, and so the trust, that's the hardest part to restore. And again, it can only be restored through action, not what any addict says. Okay.
Sorry, we had the doorbell ringing, so I muted.
And
So
the dog went insane,
yeah,
right?
it went insane. Yeah. So we are 2.5 years since D-Day. My wife has begun speaking with someone else for about 4 to 5 months, and their relationship has gotten more serious. We are best friends still and live in the same house. I just learned yesterday how deep their connection is, and that's what hurts the most. We are finalizing our divorce for July 18th, and she said this is just part of our story, and she would love to have her family together, but the trauma is too much. Very sad, but in a good place. Praying. 17 years married. I don't see a question in there either. So,
I think keep going. You think?
uh,
No.
no.
So, um, well, I so there, I do believe in how this is maybe related. I don't know, but I do believe in in-house separation for couples that are really moving forward, really trying to work it out, or the crisis has just happened and it's like, get out of my bed. You want to sleep on the couch, fine. So to me, an in-house separation is useful in the beginning when you just need to have, as Tammy said, a boundary and you don't want that person lying next to you, which I think is a great boundary. And the other time is when you're beginning to regrow the relationship and you're kind of dating but living in the same place, or you've got kiddos, as Tammy would say, that need support and you need both of you there. But somebody's involved with someone else and they're still living in your house. Someone says, I'm involved with someone else, I'm speaking, this all came out. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the addict. We are 2.5 years since my wife has been speaking someone else. Okay, the partner is speaking someone else, I'm sorry. And they've gotten serious and live in the same house. I, I don't know. So how do we find out? I don't think that she gets the right to dictate whether you live together or not. um, uh, the degree to which you're experiencing trauma. This is your boundary again, and Doesn't matter what you've done or haven't done. I can choose to I can choose to leave you. I can choose to work things out, but I can't choose to engage with someone else sexually, romantically, and still be around and say, well, look at what you did to me, so I get to have an affair or whatever. That's cruel. And I do believe that this person wants to hurt you. I wonder how long they've been involved with this other person, because I don't trust someone who's acting out and lying and living with you. But just to say it in the biggest sense, I wouldn't leave myself in a situation where I was getting closer to this person. And by you see again, oh, they look so cute when they're doing this, and I really miss them, that you never get to grieve. You never get to settle in your mind the change because you're still looking at them regularly and hoping and thinking. And so one of the things I want you to hear is, because you have acted out and you've struggled doesn't mean that you deserve to be punished by your partner moving away from you and asking you to tolerate it. I don't think that's fair, or right. And yeah, you want the relationship to be together, but that's not what your partner wants. They want the easy way out by staying with you and getting what they want. And that's what addicts do. It isn't acceptable for them, and it isn't acceptable for healthy folks either, or more healthy folks. Tammy, you want to comment or keep rolling?
Well, yeah,
Because
I
we're
mean, it's
almost done,
complicated.
so I want to
I
make sure
know
we get
it's
to.
complicated because it's, and I think you can end it in a good way because you say praying 17 years, good place praying 17 years married. But grief work, like Dr. Rob said, we've got, some resources on grief. It's real. There's a Moving On Alone men's drop-in group on Fridays with Hal Stewart.
Free,
So
free.
yeah, those are free. Yeah, but you do that work. But yes, I hope in 17 days that you're physically separated, because being finalized divorce and still living in the same house while she's dating other people or whatever, I don't know, it's complicated and messy. And
Painful,
I think for
painful.
your sake, to be in a place where you go, yes, we're divorced, and I'm going to grieve, and then I'm going to look at my life on a recovery path. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the recovery work. Lean into recovery. I'm telling you, 12-step and all of those resources are drop-in groups. Like, please lean into those, because those will be supportive of you. You are not alone. And, those can help you with healing. So,
Yeah, and I do want to validate what Tammy says. This is a grief issue. This is someone who wants to hold on to what they had, and there are parts that are still sweet and warm and connecting, um, but there's a lot of grieving to be done. The first stage of grief is denial. And I think there's some denial in here that I can still love you and we can still care about each other, and I won't be hurt while you betray me and run around with someone else. And I think that's something that has to be accepted and worked with, not with hope, but with acceptance.
okay. So the last question, because I'm typing an answer to the next one. How do I work on forgiving myself for years of believing the words my spouse said about how much he wanted to change and not holding him accountable by leaving, to actually changing his behavior? I created emotional and even physical distance. So there were some boundaries, but ultimately I stayed in the relationship with someone in active addiction. They are now, after a real threat of ending the relationship, engaging in recovery program, including doing a residential at our program. But I am so ashamed of how I let myself be manipulated for so long. And we hear this often, Dr. Rob, from partners who are feeling shame about being with an addict. So,
Well, one word came to mind, which is hope. When you love someone and you want to work it out and they're taking steps toward healing, and they say they're taking steps toward healing, um, I would have hope. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe, and you don't give up on hope, I don't think, because things are difficult. You hope that things are going to get better. And so to live in hope when you love someone and you have clues that maybe things are going to get better, to me, that's healthy. We don't get hurt by, and I've said this before, and it's a hard thing to say, but I've worked with women who were physically abused profoundly, and they'll go to an abuse center and they'll say, well, but I still love him. I still want things to work out. And maybe they do, and they do still love them. And you'd say, well, they were abusive, they beat them, how could they love them? Because love doesn't just disappear. No matter what's happened to me, it's inside of me. This is what we call attachment. And it doesn't go away no matter what's happened. You will always, people who've left my life and not well, I still love them. I love them for what we shared and who they are. I didn't love their actions and we couldn't be together anymore. But the feeling I had in my heart, that doesn't go away. And so how could you ever blame yourself for having hope and and with the love you still have and the actions this person is taking, which would lead you to think things are going to get better. Unfortunately, you've been living on false hope, which has been fed to you. So please don't blame yourself. There are many reasons why you would hope and think that this was getting better. When people blame themselves, it's usually also grief. A part of grief, when you lose someone you love, for example, I wish I'd said this to them. I wish I'd done that with them. I wish I hadn't. Part of someone being gone is we wish that somehow magically, if we had done it differently, that it would have worked out differently. And the truth is that, no matter what we had done or not done in the past, this was going to go forward the way it did, because we're not alone. We're in a relationship with a very troubled person. And so be kind to yourself. And I do think that this is a woman's empowerment retreat issue for sure, so that this person could let go of pointing at themselves and look at how they can embrace a happy a world that has meaning to them. So Tammy, I don't want to go away. This is me.
No,
I'm enjoying our time together,
I am
but
too.
you're hungry
But
and
we're
my dog is
hungry,
whining.
and your dog is whining. So, okay, thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks, Dr. Rob. Thanks everyone for the questions, and email me if you have resources that you would like.
But we do have a group next week. It's not
Yeah, we
like
do.
we
Yeah,
don't.
no. Thank you
I
for
won't be
saying
there.
that.
Aaron will be there.
Aaron Snow, our clinical director, and Dr. Rob alternate on Mondays. And we've got, and thank you again, because the schedule for this week with the holiday is a little different. So do check out the events calendar, not just the usual, because some of them are canceled for this week. So thanks everybody.
You
Thanks,
guys,
Dr.
and
Rob.
happy 4th.